The Madeira-Mamoré Railway is not an isolated anomaly. It is a single, vivid data point in a much larger, global pattern of impossible 19th and early 20th century engineering projects. When you look at them together, the idea of a simple triumph of will becomes unsustainable. A repeating motif emerges. Consider the Uganda Railway, built by the British in the 1890s. Dubbed the Lunatic Express, it stretched for nearly 1,000 kilometers from the port of Mombasa on the Indian Ocean to Lake Victoria in the heart of Africa. The official narrative is identical in structure: hostile terrain, deadly wildlife, logistical nightmares, and a heroic completion against all odds. But again, the specifics defy the stated technology. The project involved constructing massive viaducts and bridges, like the Savo River Bridge. It required transporting multiple locomotives and tens of thousands of tons of steel rails deep into an interior with no roads, no navigable rivers for heavy cargo, and no local industrial base. Every single component, from rails to rivets, had to be hauled overland from the coast. The official explanation is that they built the railway as they went, laying track and then using that same track to bring up more supplies. But this creates a bottleneck of incredible proportions. The line could only advance as fast as the single track behind it could be supplied. Yet the recorded pace of construction across vast, difficult sections like the Rift Valley is difficult to reconcile with this logistical limitation. The story emphasizes the man-eaters of Savo lions, another dramatic distraction from the more fundamental questions of tonnage and transport. Now, let's turn to the Andes Mountains. The Trans-Andean Railway, constructed in the same era, presents a different but related impossibility. Here, the problem wasn't just jungle and rapids, but extreme altitude, solid rock, and deadly cold. The railway connects Argentina and Chile, climbing to an altitude of over 3,000 meters. The engineering involved complex spiral tunnels and switchbacks carved into mountainsides. The official story credits dynamite, steam drills, and manual labor. But consider the energy required. Powering steam drills and removing millions of tons of rock at that altitude, in freezing temperatures, with a supply line stretching back down treacherous mountain passes, is a logistical puzzle of the highest order. The amount of coal that would need to be transported up the mountains just to power the machinery to build the railway is staggering. Where are the records of this monumental fuel supply chain? Finally, look at the Poti-Tbilisi Railway in the Caucasus region of Georgia, completed in 1872. It crosses the Sarami Pass, a significant mountain barrier. To do this, they constructed a line with incredibly steep gradients, which required powerful, specialized locomotives that were at the very edge of what was considered possible at the time. More importantly, the entire project, cutting through a mountainous and undeveloped region, was completed in just a few years. In each case, the pattern is the same. A project of immense strategic or economic importance is conceived. The location is remote and presents extreme environmental and logistical challenges. The official narrative attributes success to conventional technology of the era, amplified by immense human suffering and heroic leadership. And in each case, the hard data on material transport, fuel logistics, and construction speed either doesn't add up or is conveniently missing from the historical record. These are not separate stories of national achievement. They are chapters in a single, coordinated history of technological deployment, disguised as a series of unrelated construction projects. Let us set aside the stories and focus only on the numbers. This is where the official narrative dissolves completely. We will be conservative with our estimates. The Madeira-Mamoré Railway is 366 kilometers long. That is 366,000 meters. Standard gauge railway track requires 2 rails. The steel rails used at the time weighed approximately 30 kilograms per meter. So, for every meter of track, we need 60 kilograms of steel. Let's do the calculation slowly. 366,000 meters multiplied by 60 kilograms per meter equals 21,960,000 kilograms of steel. That is 21,960 metric tons. Just for the rails. This number is not a speculation, it is a direct calculation from the project's own specifications. Now we must add the other components. Railway sleepers or ties were made of heavy local wood, but they were held in place by iron tie plates and steel spikes. A conservative estimate for this hardware is another 25% of the rail weight. That adds approximately 5,500 tons. So far, we are at over 27,000 tons. Now, the locomotives. Archival records show several types were used, including heavy Baldwin consolidation type engines. A single one of these locomotives weighed over 70 tons fully loaded. The project used dozens of locomotives and hundreds of freight cars and passenger cars over its construction and operational life. Let's conservatively estimate the total weight of the initial rolling stock shipped in at 2,000 tons. We are now at 29,000 tons. And we have not yet included the most difficult items, the bridges. The railway crossed over 100 watercourses. While many were small wooden trestles, several were significant iron and steel structures. A modest 100-foot iron truss bridge from that era could easily weigh 150 to 200 tons. With multiple large bridges required, a conservative estimate for the total weight of bridge material would be at least 4,000 tons. This brings our running total to 33,000 metric tons of iron and steel. We must also add the tools, the workshop machinery, the water towers, the station houses, the telegraph lines, the steam drills, the cement, and all the other industrial equipment needed. A bare minimum estimate for the total weight of just the core railway materials is 40,000 metric tons. 40,000 tons. Now, let's consider the transport. The cargo capacity of a river steamer capable of navigating the treacherous upper Amazon and Madeira would be severely limited. Let's be extremely generous and say a single vessel could carry a cargo of 200 tons, after accounting for its own fuel for one leg of the journey. To move 40,000 tons of material, you would need 200 separate, fully loaded trips. 200 journeys, each lasting weeks, navigating thousands of kilometers upstream, through rapids that were supposedly impassable. This calculation does not even include the non-railway cargo. It does not include the food to feed an average workforce of 2,000 men for several years. That alone represents thousands of tons. It does not include the medical supplies. And most critically, it does not include the thousands of tons of coal required to power the locomotives, the steam drills, the pumps, and the workshops on site. The amount of material to be transported was immense. The capacity to transport it was minuscule. The barrier of the rapids was absolute. The numbers tell a clear and simple story. The project is described as a physical impossibility. The equation does not balance. If the official narrative is a fabrication designed to hide a logistical impossibility, what is the alternative? We must construct a hypothesis that fits the known facts without resorting to fantasy. The core problems are mass, distance, and energy. Therefore, the most logical explanation is that the builders possessed a technology that addressed one or all of these problems, a technology that was not part of the public domain in the 1880s. This does not require us to imagine flying saucers or teleportation. The solution could have been a more grounded, yet radically advanced, technology hidden from the public record. Let's consider the problem of mass. Transporting 40,000 tons of steel is the central challenge. What if a technology existed that could significantly reduce the effective mass of an object? Or perhaps a technology that could neutralize the effect of gravity, even temporarily? This would transform the logistical equation. A 70-ton locomotive that could be made to weigh only a few tons could be moved with far simpler equipment. It could be floated across rivers on simple barges or even lifted over obstacles. This sounds like science fiction, but it is a more logical explanation than believing it was dragged through the mud by thousands of men. Let's consider the problem of energy. The coal dependency is the Achilles heel of the official story. A compact, highly efficient, and long-lasting power source would have solved everything. Imagine a steam engine that required a fraction of the fuel, or a power source that wasn't based on combustion at all. A vessel equipped with such a device could navigate the Amazon and Madeira without needing to carry thousands of tons of its own fuel. It would have more space for cargo and could potentially power a propulsion system, perhaps advanced hydrojets, capable of overcoming the rapids. This is a far more plausible solution than the recursive logic of building bypass railways to build the main railway. Who would possess such a technology? The Madeira-Mamoré Railway was not a government project. It was financed by a syndicate of international bankers and industrialists, a powerful private consortium operating with immense capital and beyond the direct oversight of any single nation. These groups were at the cutting edge of science and industry. It is plausible that within their privately funded research and development, They possessed technologies decades ahead of what was publicly known. Why would they hide it? Deploying such a technology openly would have shattered the world's economic and military balance. It is far more strategic to use it quietly for specific, high-value projects. The railway itself becomes the objective, and the story of heroic struggle provides the perfect cover. The immense death toll, tragically, becomes a key component of the cover story. It provides a socially acceptable cost for the project. When people hear that thousands died, they don't question the logistics. They accept that the price was paid in human life. The narrative of suffering becomes a shield, protecting the core secret. The project, therefore, was not about accessing rubber in Bolivia. The rubber was the pretext. The real purpose may have been a field test and deployment of a new, paradigm-shifting technology in a remote location, far from prying eyes. The railway is what they left behind, a permanent artifact whose very existence defies the story they told about its creation. In the end, we are left with a stark choice. We can accept the story we have been told, a story of blood, sweat, and steam, a story where the laws of physics and logistics were temporarily suspended by human will. It is a simple, inspiring story. It is also, by the evidence of the numbers, a fiction. Or, we can choose to accept the conclusion that the numbers demand. That the Madeira-Mamoré Railway was built using a method of transport and energy that does not appear in our history books. This conclusion is unsettling, but it is the only one that honors the evidence. The weight of the steel does not lie. The power of the river rapids is not a matter of opinion. The energy density of coal is a known quantity. These are facts. And these facts tell us that the official narrative is impossible. The Devil's Railroad is not a monument to human sacrifice. It is a quiet, rusting monument to a hidden history, a history of a technology that was deployed, proven, and then carefully concealed behind a curtain of heroic folklore. It is not an isolated case. It is a pattern. Look at the great industrial projects of the late 19th century. Look at the canals, the bridges, the tunnels that seem to defy the capabilities of their time. Do not simply accept the stories of hardship and toil. Do the math, calculate the weight, question the energy source, follow the supply chain. You will find that the impossibilities are not the exception. They are the rule. The evidence is not buried. It is waiting in plain sight, in the archives, in the engineering specifications, in the simple, undeniable mass of the world they built. We have been taught a history that is incomplete. The real story may be far more complex, and far more advanced, than we have ever been led to believe. If you believe these questions are vital, and that the official record requires a more critical examination, join us as we continue to sift through the evidence. The patterns are there, for those who are willing to see them.